Hi, it's Warren Huart here. Hope you're doing marvellously well. I'm sitting here with my very good friend, Jamie Hartman.
Hello, bud.
How are you,
Nice to
mate?
see you. Very, very well, thanks.
Now, you just got back from England
Yes,
to come back to sunny Los Angeles. We actually met in Los Angeles, not in England.
we did. Introduced through a good friend who hooked us up, and then we started working on quite a few bits and pieces, didn't we, in the end? Which was
We did your solo record together.
Yes, at Swing House, which I loved and still love. And I'm going to do a bit more soon as well.
Are you going to do some more solo stuff?
Yeah. I think
Oh, we
so.
have to talk about
Yeah, we'll speak about that.
it. Marvellous.
That's at the end of the interview, we'll talk about that.
I suppose for the current sort of people, they'll know that you've been working with James Bay, which I think is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, he's a lovely, lovely man. Very talented. In fact, that one happened. That first song, which was on his record, was 5.5 years ago now.
Is it really?
That's how long ago it was. That he's been working that record now for 2.5 years.
Did you do it here in LA?
No, that song was written in London on the first trip back from LA. So yeah, and we've written since. We wrote in Topanga. I brought him out here when I first moved out here, and we went up to Topanga and did a bunch of writing up there, which is going to be hopefully on his second record.
Wonderful.
Yeah, which would be good. Good vibes up there.
So we're in the village. You rent a room here at the village.
My tiny, I wouldn't say a room. I would say more of a cupboard.
I don't know.
But it's a very creative cupboard, and then we go downstairs and use the big rooms when we need to. Yeah.
Sounds like a dream, really.
It's to be honest, it's fantastic. I have everything I need. I've got all of the vibe you could ever wish for in this place.
We come in, we go straight to the kitchen. There's bagels. There's nice coffee.
Instant vibe. Coffee is vibe.
Coffee is vibe when it's 9:30 in the morning.
It
Yes.
certainly is. With two children.
With two children. Yes.
It's a vibe creator.
Yes, I'm sure all of the people watching this, regardless whether they're professional or not, will understand that 9 a.m. is 9 a.m. when you have kids.
Yes, it really is. Yeah.
Because our days start a lot earlier than that.
Much earlier. Yeah, you've been up for 3 hours by now.
So you're in the village here. You just got back from England. You were doing some writing over there.
I was doing some writing and production over there. I rented a house there for 10 months.
Wonderful.
And had a sort of decent sized studio set up in the garden separate from the house, and had my little sort of satellite set up there, which was great. And people would come from various different places, from London and from other parts of God knows where, come and stay for a few days, and that was lovely.
Were they staying in the house, or did you have a...
Staying in the house, and we were recording, so or not, or locally, if they, depending on who they were and what.
Depending on how well you knew them.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So with two little kids running around, sometimes some artists, for some reason, completely random to me, but they just don't enjoy waking up at 6 a.m. with two children jumping on their faces. I don't know why that is.
Why is that?
I mean, obviously,
why could that be?
I was going to go there with I won't go politically incorrect yet. We'll come to that later. But no, some people don't like that sort of thing. I still love it.
Well, they're our kids, so we get used to it.
Yeah, exactly. No, but people came and they visited, and so we would start from scratch. So they walk in the door, and hopefully they'd leave with almost, a pretty much finished 70% record 2 or 3 days later with a couple of songs.
So tell me a little bit about your journey, because I think that's really exciting, how you ended up here.
I've always written songs. I was in a band in the UK, and what happened was, I was like most of us in music. You have the love of music, and you either express it or you try and capture it, one or the other, or both. I was always in bands through school, followed that dream all the way through, moved to New York when I was, the first publishing check I ever got, which was a tiny little check. I spent all of my money on taking my band to New York for a tour for 10 days.
Why New York? What made you want to go to New York?
It was the only real music contact I had outside of England. And there was this guy who said, I love your stuff, come over here, I'll help book you some shows. And that's what we did. So 4 of us went over there, we're sleeping on people's couches, booked like 5 shows across a week, and played everything from the roof of the Twin Towers down to the Chelsea Hotel. These little venues, and Baby Jupiter, which was down on the Lower East Side. Had some good stuff, and it was the beginning of it really. After busking in the UK on Portobello Road and earning that's where I found my publishing deal.
Well, to tell us that you're busking on Portobello Road.
Yeah. So after university, my parents were so proud that I then ended up busking on Portobello Road.
What did you do at uni?
I did English and philosophy.
English and philosophy.
So eloquent.
That's good songwriting material.
Bullshitting eloquently was everything, and philosophically, which is also part of songwriting. So it worked brilliantly, and then right up until the moment I was busking on Portobello Road and in Piccadilly Station, and did that. Got discovered by.
How did you get discovered?
I was on Portobello, and I ended up seeing this little bar. It's a juice bar, which now is, juice bars. This is a long time ago. It was unheard of.
Yeah.
Portobello has always been pretty hip, so they knew about it. And in the back of this juice bar, there was a great room, probably held about 60 people, and it was just a bunch of cushions, like a souk, sitting there, and it was just, and it looked pretty comfortable. I thought I could actually play a little gig in here. It'd be quite fun because I live around the corner. I asked the guy, "Can I use your room once a week and come and just sit and sing songs for an hour?" A couple of hours. Booked it. He said, "Sure, come and do it." And within 2 weeks, it was a pretty full house. Did that for a summer, so maybe 8 weeks. By the end of 8 weeks, someone had walked in who liked what I did and gave me a publishing deal.
That's amazing.
Spent all the advance instantly on the trip to New York. Met a guy who ran a studio. He said, "Come back and do some demos," which I did. It happened to be a jingle house, in fact, one of the biggest jingle houses in New York. So jingles, for people who don't know that term, is advertising music songs. So McDonald's songs, Dr. Pepper songs, the Diet Coke songs, that sort of stuff. And they said to me, "Look, you can make your record here in downtime, use the studios when we're not working, as long as you write jingles for us during the day." So I ended up working the hardest I've ever done. I was in work by 9, but I would be leaving at 3 a.m. usually. So it was pretty much, that was 7 days a week for a year. Those were the hours, 10 a.m. until 3 a.m. every day, 7 days a week, and learnt Pro Tools there. Learnt how to record, learnt how to harmonise properly from the Alessi brothers, which is a classic group from the 60s, and they were the guys who were doing jingles at the time, and they sort of took me in and showed me these fantastic
I've done a record with you, so I know about your harmonies.
Well, I just love,
amazing.
vocally, I grew up on Sam Cooke and Otis Redding, which was not the music of the time when I was growing up. We were the similar age, and it wasn't the time. At the time it was much more electronic music, and I was still very much a soul guy. So for me, it was the Rolling Stones, it was Hendrix, and classic influences, the Beatles and everything.
Bowie.
But it was also Bowie massively. I used to put Bowie's records on when I was making my first record in downtime, and 2 or 3 in the morning, and then I'd go home and be like, "Oh, well, we can try."
Exactly. I'll listen to Heroes and then be like.
And funnily enough, what was interesting was that same year, I got to sit in that studio where I was making this first record, after listening to 5 years and Heroes and all these records, and covering Bowie on my first little Ben's Brother record, which I did.
Which track did you cover?
I covered 5 years, and then was able to sit in on a Tony Visconti recording session in the main studio with a band called the Dandy Warhols.
I remember the Dandy Warhols.
They were doing a cover of Neil Young's Ohio, and it was just that actually changed the way I felt about recording, rather than the writing process, which had been until that point really the most important thing for me. And still, writing and the performing is very important for me. But that really opened my eyes to how crucial the recording side of it can be, because that was a pretty magical experience to watch Tony work and the way he set a room up specifically to capture a performance, as opposed to just, "Hi guys, right, blah, blah, blah." There was none of that. It was reverential. When you walked into the room, candles were lit, the mics were set up, there was no messing about with getting sounds. They were the studio was ready for a performance. There was spotlights on the main mic where the guy was going to be singing. Sorry, his name escapes me just for a moment. But all the musicians' gear was set up, ready to go, and captured that moment, which I loved. I thought that was very cool. It was a very cool way of doing it. We're so used to take 47 now occasionally. Well, if we're unlucky, but
right.
It was a great way.
That few?
Yeah, we don't. I have to say that changed the way I do my thing in terms of recording, because it's informed it, and I now try and capture 3, maybe 4 lead vocals if I can, and leave it at that, and then cut between. But I want to capture the performance rather than just sit there and do endless takes. And he really, he did capture something pretty magical, the way he felt about how experimental it was. In other words, it wasn't just one mic in the room. He had 5 mics in the vocal room to capture different reverb to different parts of the room. He had his setup for the keys in the control room, and the way he put it together was wonderful. I mean, they were using tape back then. They were still running through 2-inch, and he recorded one acoustic guitar track. I shouldn't say this. I don't know if I can give away.
I think he talks about it anyway. But
absolutely, I mean, they're classic techniques and everybody knows them. But for people who now record in the digital world, and are used to just working on the computers, he was recording to tape. The guitar player on the acoustic guitar captured one take, and then they slowed the tape down, and he just a little. He tuned manually to that speed. He detuned the guitar to that, played another take, and when this was a double track, so when he turned it back up to the normal speed, the natural chorus was just phenomenal. It was just something I hadn't, this thing just jumped out of the speakers at me. And seeing him do the same thing with speeding tape up to record drums, just a little, and then to get that really heavy bottom end, stuff I'd never even thought, and it's stuff that they've been doing since God knows when, but such great stuff to actually try out and witness.
Tony Visconti is a big part of talking all those Bowie records for me. That golden period for me, and I think the songwriting in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s was some of the best songwriting ever.
Oh yeah.
But the production of the late 70s and early 80s is my favourite period.
Yeah, incredible.
It's where it all sort of came together. And Peter Gabriel, Bowie,
and so
Kate Bush, those records are so
explosive, phenomenal. but just as imaginative as some of the writing. Just wonderful. It wasn't cookie cutter at all. They were just as magical, and they were the magicians as much as the artists in capturing it, which is great. That's one of the other great things about being at the Village is I see these guys walking through the door. Eddie Kramer walks in through the door, and I get to listen to those records, that he made, Hendrix and Zeppelin, all these things. Just great to be around that. That's why LA. I do love LA as well. You get to be really in it. Well, you've been here for years.
Yes. And it is beautiful. I think one of the things I love, though, with us both sitting here with sandals on, coincidentally,
absolutely,
is the fact that the weather's amazing.
And the weather's good. It doesn't suck, as they say.
How many conversations have you ever had with your mum or your dad where you don't talk about the weather?
Well, we've banned it actually because they get irritated. Because they don't even ask anymore because they know the answer,
But when you call up and you say, "Hey, Mum, how's it going?" My mother would be like, "Oh, well, your dad's outside. It's been raining a little bit today, and the sun came out earlier." I mean, it's literally every conversation.
You look at them and I actually, it's even as subtle as me looking at what sort of conditions the light, of the FaceTime call are, because if it feels like there's sunshine coming in through the window, I know I can speak about it.
Our parents are similar ages, I'm sure. I can't believe that your parents have embraced FaceTime.
Yeah, they have.
Well, you're blessed.
Well,
my parents are like technology.
They to see the grandkids and see us, and
right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think my parents are all stuck down in Cornwall. I'm assuming there's some fibre down there. I don't know.
And they have fibre optics down there.
But they're pretty remote. So and they actually still have a phone with a dial.
Oh, that's pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
These days those are digital anyway, aren't they? They actually do the phones with the little thing.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, it does that, but that has nothing to do with it. They still have the punch keys.
Yeah, it's the same phone, and it's like whenever I would stay there, they've got this long curly cord, so you have to kind of go into a room and stretch the cord around the staircase and call your wife.
Get a little bit of privacy. Hello, darling. Yeah, putting that weird cord, brilliant stuff.
We love our quaint country.
Of course, and it's good. That I think the weather builds character as well. It's quite fun for writing. I did some good writing when I was there, and some such talented people as well. It gives a different perspective to people's work over there. You tend to get all that brilliant English melancholy that just doesn't really happen here as much. Those dark indie bands, those from certainly not LA based. They come from other parts of America or from England. They're just a dime a dozen.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I remember going to Coachella years ago when The Cure were headlining, and seeing lots of bands remaining nameless that looked very similar to The Cure, and they were doing all the right stuff. And then Robert Smith gets up, and within like 5 seconds, it's like, oh, okay, I get it.
That's real English melancholy.
Yeah, it's real English melancholy.
Yeah, you can't teach that.
You can't teach that. So you're back here. Yes. You're in the village. You're in this beautiful situation, as you were saying, where if you need to go and track live drums, you can go downstairs.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming they probably give you a good rate because you're here the whole time.
They give me an excellent rate. We love you, the village. We love you, Tina. We love you, Jeff. Absolutely.
We're hoping we'll be able to pop down and check out one of the rooms for at least 5 minutes in a minute.
Absolutely.
So you got the Apollo over there?
Yes, it's an Apollo 8. Pretty straightforward setup. I use Pro Tools, and this guy just takes that quality level up. If you're using, I've used all sorts of different situations, and this one really is very versatile, very, very good quality for audio on the way in, and this little accelerator is useful if I'm sticking a bunch of plugins on there, and if they're universal audio plugins, that one takes the heat off the computer as far as the processing. But they're very, very good, and I use a combination of waves and universal audio plugins once I'm in the box. But a lot of it happens in the box, as you know, until certainly
Sure.
for the writing and creative process, I find that I need to sit down. It's great to be using real instruments, live, organic instruments. I still play acoustic guitars and pianos and stuff. But if we need soft synths, if you're trying to create a beat in some situations, for example, I've just been working with a girl called Casey Hill, who is an artist on Kanye West's label. And I didn't want to just sit there and start from a piano. I actually, I went in here and created something from contact and battery first, so that we just had a vibe going. Stuck her voice through a harmonizer, and instantly we were in the headphones, we were in the box, and writing from a different perspective. And it's just interesting to do that from James Bay, not so much acoustic guitars, right. And writing that way. But I think these days more than ever, you need to be able to adapt what it is you do to the artist coming in the door, because I find that the majority of my writing now is just directly one-on-one with the artist. Sure. So I'm trying to tailor like a tailor, trying to actually cut the suit to the client rather than.
I do find having worked with you and written and one of the things that I admire about you, I don't know if I've ever told you this, is the fact that you can actually take the acoustic guitar vocal song and make it beat driven.
Yeah.
Most of the guys quite welcome. Most of the guys that I've worked with that have beat driven songs start off with the beat and then try and fit a song to it, which is not necessarily good, bad, or whatever, but I think there's a skill in being able to look past something and not seeing it as a limitation. Right. Because if you write a song on acoustic guitar, but it's got to be super EDM, I hate using that term, EDM,
but fair enough.
But something in dance orientated, good production should be able to do anything. A song is a song.
Absolutely. For me, I mean, as I said, when we were just before, it does live and die with the song itself, but obviously how that's put across these days is everything. In that, Mike Posner sat down and writes I Took a Pill in Ibiza, and he does an acoustic version. Aloe Black writes a song which is straightforward. Avicii elevates it and takes it to the world by putting it in that different genre. And I think mixing genres these days is more than ever is really why pop radio is quite so. Well, I think it's a little oversaturated, but it has that sort of that ability to. You tend to hear songs which clearly weren't written to a beat, or they were written specifically, and they can be quite boutique in the way they feel. They have something individual about them, but then they translate to 127 if they need to. So I just like to be in a position where, if we can, I can imagine far wider and deeper than just sitting there with an acoustic, or just taking things wider and deeper in a more conventional way with harmonies and with reverbs, which I love. I lean on reverbs a lot. Reverbs are my friend, just like the sustain pedal on the piano is a friend of mine because it papers over the cracks of my playing, and reverbs. And
the ability to edit the MIDI.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
You're a better piano player than I am. So.
Well, certainly I definitely use MIDI to our advantage. It's always important, isn't it? But you capture capturing vibes and then figuring out. The same thing is with performances for me. I was working with Gabe Dixon the other day, who's a great Nashville bluesy, gospel-y piano player and artist. And he was tinkling around doing his thing. I didn't want to quantize at all. Didn't end up quantizing his part because it just, over that very conventional quantized beat, a bit of shake
Sure.
humanizes it and gives it that thing, you know, which we all look for. Well, I think one of the most important things we do, or when we listen to records, or when we have, is we've grown up on the imperfections, which are wonderful. And you actually sing a lot of the imperfections on records.
Absolutely.
So, you know, you don't sing this just the straight ahead, what everybody else has heard and done a million times. You always listen for something different. So capturing a little bit of that and allowing it to make the track breathe is important for me in production.
I agree. I think when I think of that, I think of have you seen or heard the Stevie Wonder Superstition tracks?
No, not out. No, not separated out.
They're pretty crazy because he's doing everything on it. He's doing hand claps, he's doing lots of clavinets, and if you were to take any two elements and solo them together, they don't work.
Right.
But you bring in his drums that he performed with this clavinet, that clavinet, this hand clap, it all just makes sense.
Yes, I know what you mean. It's fantastic when you see that.
It's a whole. It's a whole. It's not the. I mean, one of the difficulties I think for what we do is like knowing when to not do something.
As a producer, I'm learning that. You're way more experienced in that than I am. I'm still very much sort of figuring that one out. But I do, allowing somebody to have the space to put something together is massively important. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So back to some gear here. You've got the Dynaudios.
Yes, Dynaudio Essex speakers, which I love. In music, I think you find you get lucky sometimes. And my good friend Andy Stuchansky, who we've written together, Andy was down at Guitar Centre on Sunset, and I get the phone call, Jamie, get down to Guitar Centre now. Make sure you've got $500.
Oh, there were only $500 for the pair?
These were supposed to be on for like 3,000 for the pair, and for some reason that day, it was floor clearance day, and there were two pairs, and I had a whole argument with the manager because the sales assistant was selling them to me for $500 because he just sold a pair to Andy, and the manager came down and said, "What are you doing? These are $3,000 speakers." And he said, I would have bought them. Anyway, I was lucky that day. Picked them up for an absolute song, as they say.
That's
so
wonderful.
Yes, and they're great, very clear. I mean, small, but very, they feel pretty clean.
And those are the main speakers that you're working on?
I use those. I use Genelec 1029s as well occasionally, but those, they're very similar actually in sound, I find. They're a little sort of more of the smile, bassy and high-endy. But these guys feel clear enough to me,
Perfect. Well, knowing your speakers is the most important thing.
Yeah, and you get to know a room pretty quickly.
Did you fly this gear out to England, or did you have two sets?
Bought it here, flew it out, and I've just flown it back.
Oh, so right, okay, you did travel with it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I bought it all here. And I mean, I don't have many tools really in the armory. Great speakers, very simple, and really good A to D on the way in are sort of crucial. And the other things are my mics, which I love.
So what do you have here?
So I use two. Now these, I challenge anyone, apart from, I'm going to come back behind you 1 second. Sorry, mate. Sorry. Yes, it really is pretty compact and bijou in here. This guy, which I've used.
Only English will understand the compact and bijou comment.
It's pretty small in here. Two mics that I lean on and have yet to be beaten on in terms of sound quality on my records for vocals. Only for vocals. There are plenty of other great mics, but when it comes to vocals these days, I love the Neumann TLM 103. This has been my workhorse for the last 15 years, this particular mic. Bought it in New York, was by a very savvy engineer, said, look, it's $600. Trust me, you can put it up against as many 87s as you like, as many vintage ones, this thing will stand up, and it really has. This Manley is also wonderful, very much a pop mic, very bright, but not too crisp on the top end. But it has its own sort of, it has a thing.
What's the model of the Manley?
It's just a Cardioid reference mic, not to be confused with the gold reference, which is a bit too crispy for me, and frankly, $6,000 more, and not as good. So for me, forgive me, Manley, but this is your absolutely. I was lucky enough to meet a couple of.
With the James song, did you produce it as well?
Not that one. I'm producing hopefully the other ones that we've done. But you want to capture a performance ideally on the day that we're writing a song, I like to try and do
Sure.
the lead vocal, because you always get something magical on that first day, which is
Wonderful.
hard to recreate. So for me, the process is very, very close, and it's intimate, and it's quick. If you're writing something, you want to try and capture the energy and the excitement of having just written it. And so these guys sit here. I do my recording in the room. I use a pop shield. Chris Martin was very generous enough to have left the pop shield they recorded Ghost Stories on, and I've been using it since then. And I just literally, I sit them in the room, we close the doors, we pull the curtains.
Chris Martin's pop screen?
Oh no, his I'm sorry, the reflection filter.
Oh, the reflection filter.
Yes.
They were using that while cutting vocals?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, apparently.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sounds pretty good though to me. And these guys have never let me down so far. Fingers crossed, and touch wood, and all those English expressions.
Which we have many of.
We have them because of our sporting almost prowess.
Yes,
We need to have the fingers crossed expression.
It was a good weekend this weekend.
It was pretty good.
Chris Froome won
Yes, absolutely. Tour de France.
And Lewis Hamilton won the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Yeah, so we're getting a bit
Oh,
more
and England
successful.
beat Pakistan quite healthily. So
That's true.
It was a good English
We did the
sporting-
triple this weekend.
Did the triple. Let's not talk about football. Sorry, soccer. That's a whole level.
Yeah,
of
we
embarrassment.
don't get into that. Otherwise,
Cricket,
unfortunately,
rugby,
things start to go downhill.
cycling,
Right, let's-
Olympics, all good.
Let's hear.
The one thing that we're supposed to be good at, not so good.
That's true. But yeah, those are my.
I'm looking at your worthy.
This belongs to a really good old friend of mine who's a fantastic writer and a keyboard player. He plays in Depeche Mode. His name is Pete Gordino, and he was on tour with Depeche Mode. Going through the States, and I think they were in a guitar shop. They had a couple of days off. A guitar shop. They were in a music shop, and they were looking at various instruments, and he loved the sound of this one. Sadly, right at this moment, it's about to go in to have a bit of an overhaul, but it's a wonderful sound. I've used it on many records.
I remember how soft it is. It's like it's made for guitar players to play.
Yes, it's not a big old chunky.
It's made for us little guitar players.
Exactly.
The little,
It's a vibe. It's a vibe thing again. Yeah.
and it looks beautiful.
But I do love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. And then.
Guitar-wise, the 12-string.
Yes, the 12. There's one 12-string on its way over here and one already here. Takamina 6, which I've had for 20 years now, more than 25 years. That's an old Takamina. They sometimes sound very bright when you buy the Japanese ones, but
Sure.
they do soften up really nicely. And
Nice.
They're never going to be. It's never going to be a Martin or a.
I don't know.
An Alden, but they're pretty good.
I mean, when they came out, they were game changers for us because they were a lot cheaper than the Martin.
Absolutely, and they're good touring guitars because they sound very good. That's one thing they do really well. I think is the Fishman pickup system.
Probably, I don't know.
Is really good for live. So I've used that, and it does definitely stand up. And then my Taylor 12-string is my main guitar, and that's on its way over from England at the moment. Hopefully that. Yes, it's on the slow.
335.
Yeah, yes, the 335, which I've had again more than 15 years now, and it's my go-to.
They're just beautiful looking instruments.
Yeah, it sounds great. And
Did you buy it new?
Bought it new, and it's just held up and is very versatile for me. Actually, it doesn't. You can get a lot of different tones out of it. I'm very quick when I use those. I like to be able to use those instruments quickly just to get an idea together, and bring them into digital realm. I just try and keep it as clean as possible, like all of them on the way in. One thing about working with any of these is I use direct signal as much as possible rather than going through an amp or anything, because I like to have access to it and just be flexible with it afterwards. So when the mics go in to Pro Tools, there's nothing on the way in, there's no chain.
Right.
There's no chain, which is unusual.
So you're using the Apollo pre's?
Sometimes, and people. This is the one thing about the vocal process for me is I will, more often than not, I will record a vocal completely uncompressed and completely clean. I will just do all of the rest of it post. Occasionally now, as you said, with the Apollo, which is lovely, you've got we've got the Neve pre on there, and we've got an API Vision strip, which is good, which are great, and they do color a sound. They do have that thing. They warm it up, or they brighten it. And what I like to do, if I can, is lean on the character of the mic and the singer, and then accentuate that afterwards, ideally. So
you are using the actual preamp built in, is what I meant.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yes, just the preamp on the Apollo quad and going in, and then but the one sort of common thread I've had with productions is that people can't recreate the vocals. That's always been the first thing that people say is, well, we're not going to be able to capture that again, and the quality is in not just the performance, but in actually getting something specific. And that's the thing that I think I would never claim to be a producer, as you know. I'm not. I come from being a writer. I'm a writer who's become a producer.
You're a producer.
Yeah. So that's the one thing I think because I was a singer first, is that I want an artist to feel special about a vocal. They want to feel proud of the vocal they've put together.
Absolutely.
Because for me, that's what sells it.
But there's also that thing that there's nothing better than when you're singing the song the time you wrote it, because you're in this place, especially if you're writing a song that you're emotionally connected to.
Yeah, for sure.
It's hard to recapture that a year later.
Absolutely.
What was I writing about? Oh, that breakup. Oh, I'm over that guy.
Well, exactly. You're in a different place. And what specifically as well, as you say, you're writing about something that ideally is relevant to you that moment.
Sure.
So singing about it at that moment makes the most sense. And capturing, it's very hard to, the expression demo love can be a blessing and a curse, but I found that lately, as long as I honor that and make sure that what I deliver to people is sonically, sound, then it tends to be kept for the final. And I have to say, in situations where we've gone back and tried to recreate it because people just don't want to, I always push to keep the original vocal.
Sure.
If it's got the thing. Because that's the other thing that as a producer I'm learning, or have learned, is that it's all about that capturing that special feeling. If you don't get those goosebumps from somebody singing something, people aren't going to react to it.
I agree.
That capturing that is everything. It's that. It's as long as that survives from the beginning of the idea and the thought onto the final record, I think you're in. As long as the idea is sound and you've sung it correctly, that little shiver is what makes people.
I agree entirely, especially a song that nobody's heard before.
Yeah.
Because it's okay to do the dance remix version of Hey Jude, for instance, because half of that is me singing along with, it's Hey Jude.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to get an audience into a new artist or something, the song has got to be.
For sure.
It's selling the song through the vocal is the most important.
Yeah, I mean that's what that's how people connect emotionally. I'm an emotional writer in terms of I'm trying to push the buttons. That's the way I think my process works. A lot of people work from they have their own ways of working, but for me it's usually about just trying to get that feeling across and making sure that people believe in it. But
you have a wonderful sense of melody, my friend.
Thank you. That's very good of you. So do you. That's why we've got to write some more. again, soon. Wonderful.
You. The 12-string, that looks beautiful.
Yes, actually, hilariously impractical sound-wise, this guitar, but a lovely thing that I bought a while back when again, I was like, I just want to see how we're taking the dust off it, because I try not to. That dust is expensive as well. It's taken a long time to accumulate. Great thing, very, very unusual and niche in terms of when it gets used, but occasionally it has that birdsy kind of vibe, which I like, and just gives a track something slightly different.
So you're recording it in the right way. And the reason why I say that is because Tim Pierce told me when I was talking about 12 strings and stuff, I was like, I could never get a Ricky to sound that good. And he's like, well, how do you record it? I was like, well, I use the Vox. He's like, no. You have to plug it straight in. He's like, all of the great 12 strings are plugged straight into the console.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't know that.
Mr. Pierce, though, has a knack for playing things better than anybody else.
Yes.
So he gets to do whatever he wants with the guitar, and we pretty much lap it up because it's a gorgeous, wonderful thing.
If he tells me that's how you record a Rickenbacker 12-string, plugged directly in, that's how you record it.
Yes, I would take his word for it every day of the week.
Well, marvellous. Should we go and check out the room?
Please, let's do that. So this room was pretty much put together by Geordie Hormel for Fleetwood Mac. to record Tusk, which was they spent a good almost 2 years in this room. They built it out specifically to put that record together. So amazing desk, as you were saying, and then we'll show you through and walk you through sort of why they put it together in that way. And yeah, it was worth the money because it stood the test of time. Machine room, obviously.
But used to have lots of tape machines in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you're out here,
oh wow, an interesting layout.
They also have this little guy,
little BCM-10,
which they use for various very separate recordings. This is, I think, Oscar Peterson's piano, just sitting here in the room.
Oh,
which is kind of cool.
my dad will be so happy.
Hi guys, we're just doing a little walk through, so forgive us. It's got beautiful. A brightness to it. Then Stevie Nicks designed her own vocal booth, which is in here. Mind your step. The lights do come up, but only that far.
This looks like a Stevie Nicks kind of vocal booth.
With this kind of light, and then the sort of faux daylight.
Oh, so it's not really daylight? That's not?
No, it's all generated. And then, so when last time I was in here, Elton John was in here with piano, and they were tracking live. And we'll go through here. The room has its own echo chamber as well, built in, so that if you're tracking drums out here, and you want to crack this door open, you have your own.
Is there any light for this room?
No, they don't even light the room. It's just sometimes they record percussion in here as well, which is kind of cool.
Can you hear this on camera?
Yeah, you can hear it.
Whoa! Whoa! Awesome.
So it's
that's a great idea.
You know, leave the door open, have your kit here, and capture that natural echo.
I mean, you can even hear it like that.
It's pretty cool.
Awesome.
It's pretty cool. They have a plate verb in there. We can't get through in there, unfortunately, at the moment. But yeah, and then they set up as conventionally as possible, and each with their bit of separation. There's a drum booth in there as well. A guitar booth in there. I'm sorry. So
it's interesting, Alec. If you come back here and look, here's like kind of the layout of the room. But what a great view! It's beautiful. I love this sort of control room.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
So Tusk. I remember Tusk.
Tusk was made in here.
It was the album After Rumours.
Yes. Ken Calais actually just moved out of here. He's been upstairs for a few years.
Did Ken do Tusk?
Ken did Rumours.
I know he did Rumours.
Yeah, no, I don't know whether he did Tusk. He did Rumours.
I know he did Rumours with I can't remember the other guy. Sorry. I know he did.
Classic sound baffles behind you. You know the.
So this isn't. How do we get into this room?
This is a little guitar separate booth, which I think there's another piano in there.
There is a piano in there, yes.
We can show you there. Come through here. This is
all
also
these different rooms and stuff.
This is still part of Studio D, so they would also use out here. You know, they might put just an amp in the corridor or a bass amp, and then through here again, you've got another piano in here, which if I can find the light, mind your step for a second. The lights aren't on them, so yes, they are. Here we go. It's pretty vibey in here. So there's another piano in here.
Wow, C7.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Super bright, and this room's bright. Yeah, it's a very bright C7 in a bright room.
Yeah.
So very pop.
Yeah.
Probably great for pop tracks. Yeah. Beautiful looking room.
It's great. And
you want to come in, Alec, and see? I don't know if you can get much of it.
It's
pretty dark in here.
Yeah, you can't really see anything.
That's okay. Sorry, that's.
Yeah, you can see the piano from here. At least it looks pretty
cool. So that's that room, which actually normally you might house a guitar amp. So we'll come back through here.
Yeah, it'd be great for guitars. Nice and bright. And
it's
aggressive sounding.
So Davy Johnston was sitting in there when he was recording with Elton a few months back. Elton was in there with the piano. Nigel on the drums right here. It was a very cool little setup.
Beautiful.
And
the
legend that is T-Bone Burnett works out of here quite a lot, and he's in here every week, either in this room or in B. He likes B a lot.
When we parked this morning in the parking lot, we parked next to T-Bone. They had it marked off.
Yes, he has his own spot. Well, God bless him. Why wouldn't he? I wish one day. So that's this spot, and this is another little interesting feature of this room. Are these slats which actually change shape? You can move them around from.
Look at that.
You can move them about and open them out to change the sound above you. This can be used for drums. This little area as well.
Wow.
Just to reflect or not.
Very nice.
Very cool.
I'm snooping around.
Yeah.
Oh, see, this is into the machine room.
Back into the machine room.
There's an R2D2 sitting in here for anybody that's interested. That's an EMT 251.
Yep. Very cool. I mean, the boxes are
one of
so
the
fun.
oldest, also 250, These are nicknamed the R2D2s. This is one of the earliest digital reverbs ever. Crazy. And it's got AC blowing on it to make sure it doesn't blow up.
And then I can show you one other quite cool little thing about this room, which is a nice little segue, is the back here. Kitchen with, if you can see in, it's worth it, regular bathroom. So if you have a little look in there, you can see that toilet is pretty straightforward. And then Stevie Nicks' bathroom. Just for Stevie.
Oh, I see. So they had a men and women.
Yes.
I suppose if you're...
you could just see the tiling is different.
Oh, wow. Yeah, look at all this.
This is the chill out room.
Oh.
Which they put together as well. If you see under there, you can't really see the light. Maybe I'll turn that one on, which is kind of cool. Yeah, there you go. Just there's the fake daylight again. If you look under here, they've done it together with a mirror, so it looks like the whole all circular, but pretty cool.
That's great. That's a total optical delusion.
And this is the throne. So many bad things have happened in this chair. I absolutely love it.
So many bad things?
So many bad things have happened in this chair.
You mean good bad things?
Great bad things. So many rock and roll things have happened right there
that cannot be
I
explained
will never sit down on it. But,
or touch it even.
But I'm very much in awe of what has happened in this chair.
This looks like where Mick Fleetwood would have sat.
That's Mick's chair.
Yeah, that's Mick's chair. I got an affirmative of that being Mick's chair. I've met Mick, and he's very tall.
He is. He's been in a few times.
He's a very tall gentleman, a very, very nice English gentleman as well.
They were all in here finishing something up actually quite recently. So that's D. That's the main sort of jewel in the crown here. Although there are 3 other rooms, 2 other Neve rooms.
Wonderful.
In the building, and yeah, it's a great spot.
Beautiful.
I'm very, very lucky to even have the cubby hole here, so I love it. And when people let me, I come and play in the adult rooms instead of in the boys' room upstairs.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
Fun to do. Yeah.
Well, thanks for giving us a little guided tour of downstairs.
You are more than welcome, my friend.
You rock. What are you currently working on?
I am finishing up a couple of records with Conrad Sewell, who we've been thankfully doing good stuff with around the world. And working on a couple of songs that a couple of guys that came in last week from Germany, and they're hit makers over there, and they had a couple of really good days. So I'm just finishing up productions, tightening stuff up, and working with a new Australian artist called Dean Lewis. We wrote a song here last week, and I went in quite deep on the vocals.
Lovely.
And did a bunch of vocals. He said to me, that sound you get where you know, because one of the things I tend to do is try to create extra dynamics, as you said before, with harmonies and backing vocals. And I do a lot of the backing vocals on records I make, off in the background, but I do. And so, 14 voices doing this, sort of not quite Mutt Lange style, but just, the big, thick, harmonized vocals. So that's what I'm going to be doing today, just sitting there putting pieces together.
When I first worked with you, I was incredibly impressed how quickly you could go through backgrounds.
I love backgrounds. I mean, I also think that one of the lovely things about doing so many backgrounds is that you get colour by leaving in those very slightly out. They can be only a couple of cents out here and there, hopefully not much more than that in terms of the tuning, but you get that real natural chorus. And I certainly sing with chorus because I definitely go out by a few cents here and there, but it sort of adds whatever it does to the vocals. One of the things I try to avoid doing if I send my vocal stems to other people, if I'm working co-producing on a record, is I'd ask them not to tune the backing vocals, because I think that that's usually dehumanizes them a bit, and you just don't get that real...
It just gets small sounding.
Yeah. And it just all feels, it doesn't feel like a choir. It
Right.
doesn't feel like, which is what, if you're going for that thing.
One of the things I find that if I've got a lot of backgrounds and they're not quite working, what I'll do first is go in and do a bit of vocal aligning.
Oh, vocal line is great. Yeah.
If they're a little tighter and that width between them pitch-wise, suddenly if they're not pointing out from each other, it doesn't matter. It becomes this huge wall.
Yeah, vocal lining is great. A great plugin.
But I have made the mistake in the past of vocal lining and tuning, and the vocal goes from this to this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you only have to do it once really badly wrong to remember
not do it again.
Not do it again.
That's true. Very true.
And you can end up making it sound like a complete robot voice.
Well, it just doesn't sound like natural voices anymore, because it isn't. Funnily enough.
Yeah. Well, just not as good.
Yeah.
Even what's the great... I'm reminded of this all the time, the Elvis Costello quote, which I know he doesn't claim to own, but the talking about music is like dancing about architecture.
Right. I never heard that. I like that though.
It's just a great thing. It's completely nonsensical, but that's the point. It's like, how many times have you debated with an artist, and in the back of your mind is like, it'd just be so much easier if you just re-sang it, rather than we talk about what's wrong with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So much, 3 minutes on a pop song, go ahead and sing it again.
Yeah, just try it again one more time.
It's so much easier, and it indulges them, and they're like, oh, he's listening to my idea.
Absolutely. But I think also what's great for me recently as on the learning curve is that I'm all constantly learning from the people I'm working with as well, and that it's always that as you said it before, that exchange of knowing when to sit back and let people put something together if they've got a really great idea, because some people just come in with fantastic ideas. And going back, and if your gut is saying, hang on a minute, then gently making that point and making sure that comes across. It's let's just re-sing it once, just to see what we get. So it's always that combination, isn't it? That dynamic that really works well if you can get that right. It's when the stars align on a record, ideally. Sometimes happens.
It does. And you know what was nice about checking out the studio downstairs was that visual of, Elton John tracking in there and Fleetwood Mac, and what we were talking about earlier. It's great to work on our own. It's great to work in isolation. We can do great stuff. But there's something beautiful when your only job in the world is to be the guitar player.
Oh my goodness!
The amount of wealth of information you can bring, your only job is to focus on is getting the right tone and the right part, and interacting with those other musicians. Sure. If people ask why did records of certain periods sound so good, it's because you had maybe 12 people involved in making an album. Absolutely. And every single person excelled at their job.
Quincy Jones, the classic executive producer, ridiculous, obviously phenomenal talent as an orchestrator, as a producer in his own right, but also a personnel guy, getting the right guys in the room. Finding those players that just bring the extra thing to a record. And one thing I did recently I'm doing a little Ben's Brother 10-year anniversary revisit. I'm doing a little EP that's coming out. Was knowing when to stop doing stuff myself and say, could you please come in and play guitar for me? Exactly that thing of just sitting back and letting someone express, who is an absolutely fantastic player, and then just capturing it and not worrying about anything other than letting them do it. Same with the harmonica player. So that you get more character to a record, which really does, you can't, there's only so much you can do yourself, and why would you be able to be good at all of it? You certainly can't. There's people who can do all those jobs brilliantly well, especially in LA. I mean, the players and the quality of the players, and leaning on them for genuine quality and personality, I think it's just changes a record. Right. I agree entirely. Well, thank you ever so much for your time, mate. Pleasure, absolute pleasure as always. And let's get together and do some more writing and stuff together. Definitely. And we'll put a bunch of links below. So to everything we've been talking about. So please go below and click on that stuff. Subscribe, go to producerpro.com, check out the email list, and have a marvelous time recording and mixing. Top stuff. Thank you very much.